Okay, so we're on recording right now. It is Monday evening, a little after 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on March the 6th, 2017. And yes, we have no RV yet. Except Blondie might have hers. She's just not telling us.
Yeah, that's the ticket, Bill.
I'll tell you what, if Blondie had hers, she wouldn't be on this call.
No.
I'd be sending you all money, is what I'd be doing.
Yes, she would be. She'd be sending us all money.
Yeah, right. Yes. I don't think so.
Oh, Bill, come on. You think so little of me?
I know you wouldn't let the door hit you in the behind as you went flying out. Okay. So, we've gotten some really, really interesting stuff through the last, the last 5, 6, 7 days. It's been really, really good, all pointing to this week. In fact, some of it was pointing to today that certain groups, dinar and otherwise, might be getting paid today, and so far I haven't heard that has happened. I've heard that it's in the process, but I haven't heard that it's happened quite yet. We have had some information come in from some of our good people that are on the call, and some of you might want to speak up now, and so we have something to discuss, and we'll roll on from there. Well, let me put it this way. We've had people that have reported that we should have it, and there's no explanation why we don't have it. Has anybody heard that one before?
Bill?
Yes.
I've heard it twice today. Two things. I have actually my currency mentor, the guy that brought me into currency years and years ago, is in a Zim group, and his expectation was that they would be paid no later than midnight tonight. He has not been paid as of today, so as of before the call, so he probably won't be. However, he converses with his mentor in this is kind of into some of the, I think some Pentagon folks and ex-Treasury folks. But anyway, the report that's come out from all of those people today is basically, if you could sum it up, it'd be, we don't know why we're not either in or on our way to the bank right now.
Yeah,
that's the feeling.
Exactly. That's what I've heard. Let me ask a silly question here. Is there anybody on this call that does not own Zim? I didn't think so. Is there anyone?
We all.
I'm sorry?
We all do?
It appears that way.
Yeah.
Is anyone on the call that is not a member of a group but owns it individually? And I know there are people like that, and I don't think it's going to make too much difference. It may, but I don't think it's going to make too much difference. Of course, there are. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I am not a member of a group, and I never, ever felt comfortable turning loose to the currency to anybody. So I've never gotten involved with the group, but I do own Zim.
Okay, very good.
Nor am I a member of any group unless you're considering the internet. From
okay,
Winston Strike.
I've got a good friend that I talk to all the time in getting information, and he too is not a member of a group, a specific group, and there are several, and they all claim to be the best group, And as far as I'm concerned, the first one that gets money from me is the best group. What do you think?
Then you can be in my group, Bill.
Yeah, I like that.
But you know what? There's people out there, whether it be a Zim group or a Dinar group or whatever kind of group it is, that are just busting their patukuses on our behalf. And I know sometimes I make it difficult for them, so I really appreciate them for doing what they're doing and putting up with me, and I'm sure you do as well. I think that when the time comes, they're going to deserve a big pat on the back. Of course, we won't be able to tell anybody, but we can send them a text message to say thank you very much. But there's some good people out there, and
You're with
go ahead.
Bill, you're with
Oh, you know what? Here's an interesting thing. We've heard from the history of when this started. It kind of started 8, 10, 12, 13, 14 years ago, maybe a little more than that, with the reevaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Now, it's probably farther back than that, with some other plan in motion, and then, lo and behold, Iraq fell in their laps after they saw what could happen with a reevaluation and how much money they could be made out of it with Kuwait. It probably was somebody looked at it and said, "Man, that's a golden goose right there. We need to see what we can do with that." So the RV, I think, was born. And that may be a little bit simplistic, but it seems to me that was the start. And over time, we all know that the dong came in, and then the rupiah, we had the rupee, we had other currencies that were added along with it. And then later on Tony's calls and others, we heard, okay, now there's 209 currencies involved, and it's no longer an RV of the Iraqi dinar. It's an RV and GCR of the world's currencies. And then let's talk of, well, how's all this going to be funded? How are people going to get money out of all this? And so then there was talk of the gold-backed currency, or a hard asset that backed it up. Well, we all know that there's not enough gold in the world to back up the kind of dollars we're talking about. And then they saw, okay, well, about 5 years ago, let's start thinking about what can we do with making the value of countries combined with their hard assets as a full asset. So instead of just gold and silver and oil, etc., it was also the total GDP of the country. And that made things a little bit more palatable. Then we have in there, about that same time, the introduction, and I can remember this back about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe less than that, I can't remember now. Anyway, it was somebody on open mic came on there, and they were saying, I think it was RLD on open mic. I think that's who. It was somebody in Florida, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, they said, you need to look into this Zim. It's dirt cheap. And back then it was dirt cheap. So I said, what the heck? I mean, why not? So I got some. Anytime we get this kind of funding, we do it on a whim, pretty much. And it was inexpensive, and I had the money at that time to buy it, so I did. And now we hear talk of the Zim maybe a precursor that must go to fund everything else. And why is that? Why is that? Bottom line is the ZIM is backed by a country that has an extraordinary amount of hard assets under the ground, in the ground, that that's just incredible, incredible. And then you look at who bought out Zimbabwe, who helped
China.
them? China. That's
China.
right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one of these stories that there's a beginning and there's an end. And I think we're at the end. And we're so near the end that it's time for it to happen. Who wants to chime in on that and add to it or tell me I'm wrong? Yes.
Bill, when you get a minute, I've got a couple things I can comment on. This is Snake.
Go ahead, Snake. You can do it right now. I got it.
I was concerned when all this stuff, began, as far as we were going to get 800 numbers, maybe we were not going to get 800 numbers, and then how the people that own Zim would actually be able to participate should the Zim go ahead of anything else. So I contacted HSBC, and if everybody has, well, this is recorded, but if everybody wants to get a pencil, I'm going to give you a link. I'm going to preface this by suggesting, if you haven't already, you go in and create your own private email strictly for currency communications. If you've not done that, then do that. But if you will contact this email address this link I'm about to give you, you can enter your name, just need your first name, a phone number, and an email address. And I don't know that it's necessary that you put the phone number in there. But it's an HSBC link for United States owners of Zim. So I'm going to start the link now. It's https://www.hsbcprivate, PRIVATE, bank, BANK.com /E as in Edward, N as in nickel, /about, ABOUT, -US /contact, CONTACT, -US. From what it's going to go through the HSBC Bank out of New York, but if you're
Repeat
a
that again,
holder,
please.
Pardon me?
Repeat that again, please.
The whole thing or just the last sentence?
Can we get a PM on that?
Yeah, can we get a PM on that?
I can do that. I'll send it to Bill, and he can forward it to whoever's on this call, because I don't know everybody that's on this call.
Go ahead and send it to me when you get it.
All right.
Snake, did you think you were going to say that one time?
I'll say it again.
I mean,
I don't
Snake,
have a problem.
Did you really believe you were going to get away with saying that one time?
Are you?
Who was that?
I don't know.
Mr. B, I'm just picking on you. I'm just picking.
I don't mind repeating it. I'm just trying to get the information out, and then
you don't
I'll
need the HTTP. You don't need the HTTP.
All right. After the www dot.
Okay. Okay.
I'll do it like I'm in the airline business. H. Henry,
Okay.
S. Sam, B. Boy, C. Charlie, P. Paul, R. Richard, I. India, V. Victor, A. Adam, T. Terry, E. Edward, B. Bank, A. Adam, N. Nickel, K. Knight, dot, com/EN, Edward Nickel, /about, A, Adam, B, boy, O, Otto, U, umbrella, T, Terry, dash, US, United States, /contact, C, Charlie, O, Otto, N, Nickel, T, Terry, A, Adam, C, Charlie, T, Terry, dash, US, United States. Now, I'll send that to you, Bill, but here's the point.
Okay.
Create your own email address strictly for this type of a contact.
Okay.
Put your information when you go to that site. Put your information and email address and so on. And if the Zim comes to a point of being a exchangeable currency, HSBC will email you and give you a location for you to take your Zim to exchange.
Oh, that's wonderful, Snake.
That is wonderful.
Snake, is this help?
Oh, yeah.
You put your zip code in there and your phone number is what they're at. Let me read this. Exchange Zim currencies would qualify us for their minimums. I added zip code, phone number, and used my special secure email address for future prosperity. This link was sent to me on the 1st, March the 1st. And I've already signed up. I have not heard anything back from them. There's been no confirmation that they even got it. But the point being is that if the Zim does go to exchange, and they know, because most people that if you're not in a group, nobody knows you own Zim.
Right.
So this is a way that HSBC, from everything I've been led to believe here recently, is they're going to be the lead bank in the Zim exchange, not so much Wells Fargo anymore.
I have a question for you, Snake.
To Canadian as well?
Are you there?
Do you know?
I'm not sure about Canada. I wish I knew, but this is a bank in New York City, the HSBC Bank in New York. Mm-hmm. Is who you're contacting.
I have a question for you, if you don't mind.
I don't mind.
From what I was told, and this comes from somebody who is quite high up. Well, I won't say as high up, but touches in a lot of security aspects. When it is true, from what I'm understanding, it is true for every currency that a person has purchased from the time of this beginning, and especially now with the groups and stuff that are out there, they are aware of the different ones that are purchased from sites like Dinar Trade. What are the other sites and stuff? They do have Beverly Oaks, and they do have a record of your holdings. Now, what they don't have is your extent of knowledge that you have about these currencies and what's going on, and what you know as far as like the banking and the systems and what's going on in Iraq, and where you actually stand as far as your knowledge and your preparedness to be able to exchange these currencies with them. But I was informed that they really do have a record of everybody.
Do you think they have anybody from a dealer from eBay? I don't even know who.
Let me address if I might. There is not anyone that's a legitimate marketer of currency that is not registered with the United States Treasury or one of the commodity exchanges in this country. And all the commodity exchanges are reporting to the Treasury as far as foreign currency that's being exchanged or purchased.
Mm-hmm.
Are you
so
sure?
I spent 40 years in the industry. I have a fair understanding of how they work.
I understand, and I'm not saying that you're wrong. What I'm asking you is, are you sure that there's no possibility that I'm right. Just think about what I'm asking you. I'm not disputing what you're saying. All I'm saying is if there's somebody that I can't really disclose who they are. I've gotten a verbal lashing because some of the comments that I made one time in chat was found several times, and I got a good sound verbal beating. So I can't really disclose any more information, and that I think Bill knows who I am and who I'm talking about. But
it wasn't me, was it?
I'm sorry. Oh no! No!
Let me see.
So they would know what we have in them.
They would know that you've made the purchases. What they don't know is, like, if I made the purchase, like with Dinar Trade, everything has to be reported. Everything is recorded to an extent.
Right.
So they go through and they search these things because this is so above and beyond our knowledge that I can't even fathom the architects of this. They've got to be beyond genius. I mean, I know that my IQ is not low, but my Lord, anybody that has did this, whoever created this and put this together, they've got to be above and beyond genius. But as far as they've taken into all points, excuse me, they've looked at all aspects of this, and the thing about it is and not meaning to shove this into the other, but what they count on is everybody being so wrapped up into what they want, everybody frustrated to the point, or I won't say frustrated. I'll put it like this, in my opinion, from what I gather, this is just a distraction to detour us from what is to come. There are other baskets. I hate to say it like that, but there are other baskets. So what better way to keep you preoccupied and keep you from finding out what's going on here? Let's put all of this in. Of course they're going to put one great big sleeper in there because they're not going to tell you, okay, well, yes, this is going to revalue and we're going to give you this rate. They're hoping and they're praying, okay, well, if the Zim comes out at $2, hey, I'm not going to be greedy. They're praying, they're hoping on that. Don't be greedy. But then there are those others that truly have that in their heart, that they're wanting to make the world a better place. But there's still stipulations behind that. So what better way to keep you preoccupied and not know about the next thing that's going on than to overfill your plate with this right here? Okay, well, this part of the Zim is revaluing in this basket. But let's say that's just to distract you long enough. Everything is taking so long because they want to get everything in row so they can do it so quickly for the next couple of baskets that nobody will be able to take an advantage, or better yet, they're going to be able to see who is truly able to handle the responsibilities that they are given, and if they're worthy, or if they find them worthy of carrying out in the next basket. That's why, if you think about it, why else would they put these stipulations in with the limits? Let's say with the next basket, so to say, I can't verify or disprove of the rumor of, you have to have $10 million to invest in the next basket. Is it true? It's possible. Is it false? It's possible. But the thing is if that is true, and you've got all these other people out here, let's say you've gifted a dinar note, or you've gifted a dong, a dong note. There's others like the rupiah and the rupee. They're not counting on they're not counting on you thinking ahead. They're counting on you thinking right then and there. This is what they want you so sick and tired of the currencies that it's just going to be like, to heck with the next basket, I got mine. That's somebody else's deal. will worry about that. Then they don't have to worry about that.
Well, wear us down.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Wear us down.
Pretty much. So nobody ever hears anything about the Philippines or the Colombian peso, or you may hear a little bit here and there about Mexico, the Mexican peso and stuff like that. But the thing is what nobody's realizing is if you don't buy, it's kind of like watch this hand so you don't see what this hand is doing. Okay, well, I'm so busy involved with all these other currencies over here with the ZIM or the dinar or all this that's in the public eye and what is being told, but then there's those few individuals that has that, oh, well, you want me to look over here, what are you hiding over here? Okay, I have a tendency to be one of those individuals. I have brothers. So I know when you're wanting me to watch this over here, it's something you don't want me to know. Okay, why don't you want me to know about this? Because we want to hurry up and get this done so you won't have time to deal with this over here. Does that make sense? I could be wrong, but I could be right. I'm just saying.
How many of these other currencies have you bought so far?
That's the thing. Nobody has really paid any attention.
No. My question was, how many have you purchased so far?
I have only been able to get one, and that was the Philippine peso so far. But there are others, and I have not, let's put it this way. What I have asked the information has not been returned to me yet. But I am more than sure that one of the other currencies that needs to be, or I shouldn't say needs to be, but would be a very wise investment would be the Philippine peso. And another one that I find in question is the Zimbabwe. I believe that in my opinion, it's going to revalue in the first basket, but also, too, I have my thoughts that not only is the Zimbabwe that most have now, the 2008 and 2009 AAAB, are going to revalue in the first, but I have reason to believe that there's something about the bearer checks that they don't want us to know about yet. And I believe, in my opinion, that it's more of a thought of once we find out, it'll be kind of too late. Run it all together concurrent. If you're dealing with the first, you won't have time to realize unless you already have that knowledge to exchange or to purchase these things when you exchange before it's too late. There are those people that will be able to, no matter what, even if it is a $10 million, you have to have a total asset combined of $10 million or whatever it is. There are some that will be able, there will be quite a few that will be able to make that. But there are those ones that won't. Some people will blow
Can you
all
speak just a little bit louder, please?
Is that better? Are you there?
On my end, you keep fading out. I don't know if my end or your end.
I'm sorry. It's storming here, so I'm trying to get everything that I have to say in as quickly as possible. The hail's coming, so forgive me if it gets out.
This is Mr. B. I have a little trouble with all these baskets. I think that the only basket we're going to see is the International Monetary Fund, the basket of currencies that make up the valuations for the IMF. And I understand what you're saying about the revaluation, but again, I look at history, and I know that in 1971 Nixon took us off the gold, and then 72 he took us off silver. Those currencies coexist even today, but with our fiat. But it wasn't until 1974 that the rest of the world came on board, and I know that it's not exactly the same, but when those currencies revalued, they all changed. It was 2 and 3 years later. So I still think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity out there. And once they revalue, I don't believe there's any hurry in exchanging because they're just going to stay at the value they revalue for a very long time. It's not like they're going to go revalue and then be worthless 2 days later. So I don't see that we need to worry about being the first one, like we say, the first mouse. But I mean, I just see things a lot differently than maybe you do. But that's okay. We don't have to see it the same.
Okay. As a matter of fact, I mean, don't take this the wrong way. I mean, I'm very, very glad that you see different things differently than what I do, because I want you to give me things searched so I can prove myself right, not to prove you wrong, but I need to find somebody that doesn't have the same opinion as I do.
Right. I have no problem with me being wrong. I can be wrong. I have no problem with that. And
yeah.
I'm not trying to prove that I know everything or I'm the smart one. That's not my point. My point is I'm looking at things differently than you are, and that's a good reason for us to talk or listen to each other, because through, talking, we're all going to be able to pick up little tidbits of information. Like right now, what's going on in the world I find very interesting. I was saying just the other day how I find it interesting that Obama and John Boehner, before he retired, they put a limit on the debt ceiling. Now, they may have done that because...
I found that very interesting, too.
Yeah, they may have done that because they thought Hillary was going to win, and they were able to go ahead and move forward with the international transfer of the sovereignty of America to the United Nations. And if you have a debt ceiling where the government cannot borrow money anymore, there's only one way the government can function. They have to start printing their own currency, or somebody has to change something. I mean, because if you can't borrow it, how are they going to create currency if they can't borrow money? So I'm thinking that they made a huge mistake now because Trump's in place and he's telling the UN basically to get lost. And I just think he's going to go ahead and have the Treasury print our own currency. And I believe they're going to coexist, just like Nixon did, with gold and silver certificates. They coexist even today. But you wouldn't give me a $20 gold certificate because it's worth more than $20. But you could spend it into commerce. Of course, it wouldn't last long. Somebody would grab it. But the point is, we could have two currencies. We could have an in-country currency, and we could have an out-of-country currency. And to me, that makes a lot of sense because we're going to have to put to rest all of the petrodollars.
And I believe you're on to something.
And so the petrodollars are going to have to be retired through the International Monetary Fund through the Business for International Settlements. And so I'm very excited to see what I believe to be happening actually coming together. I've been looking at it for a very long time. People on here know that I've talked about it. And so, wow, you just can't make this stuff up. Let's just see. I don't listen to what they say. I look at what they do. And so I'm waiting for, Mr. Trump or our new Treasury Secretary or somebody to make an announcement as to the changes. And the thing that encourages me the most is Mr. Trump said it's going to happen sooner than you think. Now, the debt ceiling takes effect on the 15th. In other words, they cannot expand the money supply this month on the 15th. And apparently they have just enough money to get down the road about 2 months. And then they're not going to have enough money for the government to function. So that's when I say all this stuff between now and then is going to happen. But in order for that to happen,
don't they have, isn't there, once again, I'm just asking, but don't they have, like you said, it's on the 15th, but if there's something that's going to be implemented, doesn't it need to be done within 7 days?
Well, they've already made the order. They've already made it. The only way they can get around this is 2/3 of the House and the Senate have to agree to step over it. In other words, allow the government to allow the Fed to print more money. In other words, to borrow more money into debt. But we're not going to get 2/3 of the House and 2/3 of the Senate to agree on anything. And so when this comes into play, it'll be the 15th of this month. But that's just when the order takes effect. And then at that point forward, the government cannot borrow any more money. They cannot increase the debt. And so what are they going to do? They're going to have to do what Abraham Lincoln had to do. He had to print the greenback. The greenback was the money that Abraham Lincoln used to win the war. You know, all of us on here all say, oh, we're going on the gold standard, or we're going on the asset-backed standard. Isn't that wonderful? And I would say to you, no, it's not. It's not wonderful because it bears usury. It's not great at all. They're just recapitalizing a debt-begot-debt system. What we need to do is tell the Fed to take a hike and print our own money that's born into existence without debt. And now you got something where the people get their currency back. But if they move forward with the plan that they had in place, which is to, and they're not going to do it because Hillary didn't get elected, otherwise they would have turned our sovereignty over to the United Nations. We would have had the IMF taking control of all the currencies, and they're going to use their SCRs to lend to the countries. You're talking about a much bigger Federal Reserve, just to make it simple for everybody, a global Federal Reserve. That's what they were creating. Now, I think Trump's going to tell them no. I think he's going to say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to get rid of the Fed and the IRS, and we're going to have the Treasury print our own money. And we're going to pay off the Fed with the money we print. And that's exactly what we need to do. We need to take back our currency for the people and get rid of the corporate oligarchy. And so I'm very excited, even though I got into this currency many years ago just for the Iraqi experience, you know, the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar based upon what happened in Kuwait, of course. Now I see a global condition that they were trying to move us into, which is under attack. This is why they're attacking him, you know, so relentlessly, because they know that he's going to mess up their whole global plans for a global dominated hierarchy or plutocracy of the rich ruling over everybody else through this new system they were putting in place. And he's the wrench in the wheels, in the cogs. So, I mean, I could go on. I don't want to bore anybody, but I'm just saying that's what I'm watching.
Please don't think of it as a bore. Really.
No, it's very interesting.
Very.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. B, who is our biggest creditor?
Well, you see, that's the funny thing, because our biggest creditor are the bankers. And it's not the bankers of, it's not, okay, how do I explain this? The families have changed. In other words, it was the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, the Stanleys, and over the years they've changed, and now it would be the George Soroses and maybe. But what they did is they took the owners of the Federal Reserve and they hid them from us. They don't want us to know that there's owners. They're hiding them. And so to say who they are anymore, they're trying to hide them. This is why Zimbabwe is so important. If what Zimbabwe did is true, they basically took the assets of the country, put it on a currency, put the currency on hold, and then distribute it to the people, so that the corporate oligarch that makes up America couldn't walk in and take all control of all the assets. You know, right. This is why countries need to nationalize their assets. This is what's wrong with America. America should have been the first country in the 200 years ago to nationalize their assets. It should have been from day one. Why would we allow the oil companies to steal our assets? They should be paying us for our natural resources that you and us own. We were born into this ownership because this is a sovereign country. This is how backwards our country is. This is how much has been hijacked. And so, I mean, where do I start? Everything's wrong. You pick a subject, I'll tell you why it's wrong. I don't care what it is. Everything you think you know, you've been lied to. Everything, including your birth certificate, your retirement, the cars you drive, the cell phones you use, the internet, I mean, everything. Everything you've been lied to, our schools. Name one thing they haven't lied to us about. And so what we need to do is we need to get our currency back. And Mr. Obama, I'm concerned because when he does his next move, I'm going to know whether or not he's just another part of a two-party system. In other words, is he with the, obviously he's not with the elites as far as a global, condition, as far as moving forward with the IMF, the BIS, and the World Bank. But maybe
Trump or Obama?
Trump. Maybe Trump is maybe Trump has still been bought off or tainted. Maybe he's just going to give us a little bit. Maybe he's just going to give us enough to make we thought we won. Because if they move forward and do not have us print our own currency, then something's very wrong. Very wrong, because the people have to get their currency back. We got to get the usury out of the way. And I find it really interesting. It looks like, and of course, Boehner was a Republican, and Obama, of course, a Democrat. Isn't it funny? They come together and make a, put the debt ceiling in place. What is, I never trusted that Boehner.
Boehner, no.
Myself. No. And just like I don't trust McCain. McCain is a sellout. He's not.
No,
fit.
he's a sellout.
Yeah.
He should go.
So we'll just have to see if Trump's the real deal or if he's just doing it for the other side of the table. There's a two-party system here, and as much as they fly together and go the same direction, one faster, down that road than the other one, we still have yet to see Trump what he's really going to do. I don't care what he says. I want to see what he does. And so this is what I'm watching very closely. But I think the deadline is here, guys. There's no way the government can function without increasing the debt unless and the only way they're going to get rid of the debt is we got to print our own money. We print our own coinage, but we need to print our own money. And that's when you will know that all of this stuff is going to happen.
You think it'll be announced or they'll just do it?
They'll probably just do it with a little bit of an announcement. You can go on YouTube and look up Nixon, and actually you can see Nixon do the announcement. Of course, they didn't have YouTube at that time. They had TV. But if they're going to do any kind of announcement, expect it to be like 2 a.m. Expect it to be on the back page or buried in the New York Times somewhere.
Yeah.
In other words, all of you are talking about, oh, I'm so worried about the 800 numbers. I'm worried about getting to the bank right away. And I would say, just quit worrying about it. It's not going to go down that way. This is going to go down without any fanfare. They're not going to announce to the world what we know. What they're going to do is implement some changes. They might come out and they might say, well, we found out that there's some corruption with the Federal Reserve, and so we decided that we're going to absorb the Fed into the Treasury. They're not going to tell you anything else. They're going to say, well, the IRS, we've made some changes in the IRS. There was a little bit of corruption in the IRS. We decided that we're going to implement changes and make it simpler, so we're going to go with a flat rate tax. They're not going to tell you that the IRS was a created collection arm for the debt that was created when we allowed them to print our money. They're not going to tell you that. So, the only ones that are going to know it are the people that are actually aware. But they'll still make the changes. That's my point.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. B. Hey, I got a question here. I've got a caller on here from, from Really Rosie's Restaurant in Mexico. Who is that, pray tell?
It's Sunny place?
Well,
It's a 52322224427 number. Been down here the whole call. Who is that, please?
I don't know who it is.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see somebody was about to talk. If you could. (522). It's a Mexico caller.
It's not 224-4277.
It's 224-477. It's a 277. Speak again. Who that was?
That's mine. That's Sonny's place. I'm in PV.
Oh, are you on the beach again?
On the beach. She's there.
What can I say? Oh,
Be nice.
you know, I'm just hanging on to everybody's word here. It's 224-4277.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's me, Bill.
Okay, thanks, Sonny.
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure we didn't have an interloper in here.
Yeah, no.
Uh-huh.
Just little old me.
Okay. All right, Mr. P, I really appreciate your comments. Very well said. It's just like we all have the information that we've gathered, and we all have information we want to share. And I know there's people on here that are hearing some very interesting and very positive things that were supposed to happen that haven't happened yet. And who knows why we don't. We're only waiting for this to finally roll out. So, when we get into a call like this, we try to figure out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And most of the time, nothing makes sense. Because
some of us have been on this for so long now, and we've heard so many things, up, down, sideways. They're not going to take the smaller denominations, only the 100 trillion or the 50 trillion. We've heard so much, nobody really knows. Are we going to get 800 numbers or not?
Speak up a little bit, Sonnies.
Pardon?
It's hard
Speak
to
up
hear with
just a
all
little
this
bit.
noise.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
I've got a question. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I've got a question. This is Kermit. I have a question for Mr. B. When you say there won't be a lot of fanfare, now there's two things that come to mind. When Nixon announced, or your former president Nixon announced that the U.S. dollar was coming off of the gold standard, they were actually the only currency that was attached to the gold standard. Every other country, especially the European countries, were all using the U.S. dollar as their basis for being asset-backed because the U.S. dollar was backed by gold, which is what Tricky Dicky really messed with everybody else on that, because you could never pay back their gold that they were demanding because they didn't want the U.S. dollar anymore because it was being overprinted. So I guess my question, and he did make a public announcement, and I do remember seeing that, believe it or not. I was young or old enough to see that. So now today, when they announce the U.S. printing their own currency, are they actually going to be indicating that it's going to be now asset-backed? And if it's asset-backed and you're printing your own currency, at the same time, you almost have to say that the Federal Reserve has to be taken out of the picture. So it's really a dual announcement, isn't it? Because there's no way you can print your own currency and still have the Federal Reserve, because that's what they do. Just a question.
This starts wars, actually. This kind of change can start a world war. What the deal was is Nixon had to get us off the gold standard because the countries were taking the treasury notes and demanding gold in payment, which was going to deplete the gold that America held. So we decided that we're not going to pay them in gold. We went on to fiat, or we went off the gold standard, and then a year later went off the silver standard. Those standards, or at least the gold and silver standard, was exactly. When we talk about a gold standard and a silver standard, we have to understand that is not the people getting their money. That's a control mechanism. When they put us on a standard, they're controlling the supply of money, and then they're charging us to print it, which is the usury. So when you say, people will say, "Oh, I'll be glad we go on. It'd be really nice to go back on a gold standard," and I'll say, "No, you don't know your history." Because if you look back, I think it was 1887, there was the Great Khan, which at that time we were on a gold standard, and they tried to release the stranglehold the bankers had on the people by introducing a silver standard to give liquidity to the people. And that actually failed. But the point is, when there's a standard, it's the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. The best money you'll ever have was the greenback, and yet few people have heard what that is but don't know what it is. And it's actually money that's backed by nothing, that is only good for paying taxes. And because it has no usury and it's backed by nothing, the government can print it and the people can use it and pay their taxes with it, but the banks can't control it. The reason the banks didn't want to introduce silver into the gold standard was because they couldn't control the mining operations in the United States. Therefore, they wouldn't have been able to control the currency like they wanted to. And so if we're moving from fiat to a asset-backed standard, which they would call a gold standard, then all we've done is increased the financial oppression on the world, because it's going to be born into usury. They're just expanding what they've already got. It's not a system for the people. It's a system for the plutocracy that's in place right now. And so this is why I'm saying we need to watch what Trump does, because we need to get the people off of the standards if we can. Now, he may not be able to do it right away. And if we do go to an asset-backed standard, all of us will still benefit very well. But just remember, the people are not going to get their freedom. They're going to be controlled through their currency like it's always been. It's been that way since 1913. I would tell anybody on here that wants to understand more about what I'm talking about, look up something you won't believe, tally sticks. Tally sticks were a currency. It was nothing more than a branch off a tree, and they split it in half. Before they split it, they put marks on it, and those marks determined by the width of the mark how much money was lent. Then you had the obligor and the obligee. They split the stick. Each person kept one half. That lasted. There's no usury, right? The governments would create them and distribute them to the people like currency. That lasted 720 years. And the people flourished because there was no usury on the money. So when you guys, think about currency, we've never been educated into what all the variations are. And all of our life, we've been under the usury, been under the bankers. So, and to answer your question, your original question, I guess, how are they going to announce it? They'll probably, when we announced in 71, the rest of the world didn't come over and attach. You see, we took the American dollar and created the petrodollar, attaching it to oil, and then everybody else liked it, and they attached their dollar to our dollar. So right now, all of the dollars in the world are attached to the American dollar. And look how well our dollar is doing. But when it comes down, when it actually collapses or explodes, into infinity because of the overprinting, the rest of the world's going to have to do something else. And when they go back and start looking at asset-backed, it's better for them, because then they're not locked into our dollar with their value. Their value of their dollar is very restricted. We have an unconventional monetary policy because we can print a tremendous amount of money, and we make them hold it in reserve to function internationally, which they bear the losses of our overprinting. This is why a lot of countries hate us so much, because we financially oppress everybody else while we live like kings. We're the golden goose, the golden egg. So they allow us to live better than anybody else, because the bankers need us, right, to pay the taxes on the debt. I mean, it's a hell of a system. Once you understand it, you'll stay awake at night and go, oh my God, I can't believe it. You realize that out of a whole year of working, 3 months of that year just goes to pay the interest rate. That's how much you pay to the bankers that print our money. You pay 3 months of your income every year to the bankers, on average. Wouldn't you prefer to have that money in your own pocket?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
If I could add a little comment to that, back in 1967, I was flying airplanes for TWA. TWA had one flight a week. It left out of Lisbon, Portugal, and flew to Boston, Massachusetts, and all they brought back to the United States on that airplane, besides about 20 or 30 people that would pick cranberries, was U.S. currency that was asset-backed by gold or silver. And the Brinks trucks would line up outside of, but they would go from almost the air freight terminal to the international terminal, and all they did was take money off that plane that were gold and silver-backed U.S. currency and take it down to either the Federal Reserve in Philly or the Federal Reserve in New York. And that's where they started exchanging that currency for gold, because it was real money that was being spent in Europe and coming back to the U.S. And that's why Nixon had to take us off the gold standard. So whoever this Mr. B, he's giving you some facts.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you. Yeah. A lot of people didn't know that. We had to get off that standard because everybody was privy to the con, and they weren't going. They knew America was printing too much money, and the value of the currency was going to devalue. So they wanted the gold, so that they would not be a part of the printing of too much money, and America couldn't do it anymore because it would destroy America. This is why Nixon went off, and they went fiat, so that way they wouldn't have to pay anybody in gold or silver internationally, and they could continue the game because look what they did. They expanded it into infinity, 20 trillion. Do you realize the debt is not 20 trillion? You guys
more like
know
200 trillion.
Yeah, it's not. It's much more than that. They're only telling you one little part of the debt. They're not telling you how much debt there really is. So, but this whole thing is going to have to get a you can call it a jubilee. Some people like to call it that. You can call it whatever you want. But the point is the system will cease. It'll have to be rewritten. The debt will have to be charged off. I mean, this stuff has to happen.
Mr. B, what happens if it is charged off?
Well, I could go down a couple different roads with that, but all debts are paid in blood, my friend. Unfortunately, that's the way it usually ends. It ends in a war, but I think that this time around they're probably going to get around it. If the United States decides to print their own money, they can print. The government has the ability to print any amount of money they need. And then, but the way that we're supposed to do it is we're supposed to print money per capita. In other words, let's just say it's $1,000 a person. And that's supposed to be put into commerce to help facilitate commerce. So this is why I say we'll have two currencies. We'll have an international currency and a United States currency. And the reason for that is because they have to take all the debt and rest it, take it down and control it. And so in order to avoid war, the United States is going to have to make good on some of their debts. And I believe you're seeing some of that already occur when they're taking the treasury notes as payment for some of the assets in America. A lot of countries are buying assets in America for the treasury notes that they're holding.
Okay.
So I think they're going to clean it all up over time. That's what I'm trying to say. With the 2010 Reform Act in place and agreed to by everybody, this whole thing was agreed to go down as smooth as possible. And the only thing that's in the way right now of the master plan they had is Trump. And he's not going to play ball with all of their plans. He's not going to give up the sovereignty of the United States. He's not going to agree to what the United Nations wants. But he will move forward with the new currency. I believe he'll do that. I believe he will move forward with the revaluation. He's just going to change the way who's going to be in control or who's going to be in power of the currency. That's what I think he's going to change.
I think he'll also bring the Treasury back from Puerto Rico to the United States.
Exactly. That's look at who he's put in place. He's put in all these military people and then he hired a bunch of Goldman Sachs. And the interesting thing about the people from Goldman Sachs, they know what's going on, but all the ones he's hiring know about the corruption. In other words, they're on the same page he is, from what I can tell.
Could I break in just a second to how many people don't know what that reference to bringing the Treasury back from the Puerto Rico to the U.S.? How many don't know what he's talking about?
Me.
I, for one, don't.
I don't.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay.
The real treasurer of the United States, at least 4 years ago, was a man named Manuel Diaz, and he lives in Puerto Rico. And our Treasury, we have a Secretary of Treasury in Washington, D.C., but he's not really the Secretary of the real Treasury of the U.S. It's in Puerto Rico.
The corporate Treasury.
Right. The corporation Treasury is in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico, as you may recall, just went into receivership here about, 2 months ago or so.
The IRS is the collection agency for the Internal Revenue, which is the actual people that do the taxes. IRS is nearly the world's biggest collection agency, and they're still illegal. They were never, that bill was never passed authorizing them.
Yeah, I believe it was Amendment 16 was never ratified or accepted, and a lot of the states never even agreed to it. And they still
I've heard that more than once. That just out of asking, since you bring that up, if it was never made legal, then how is it that the IRS come after them for owing taxes?
Because
there is a big article on YouTube about that as well, and on Netflix, because I watched it here about a month ago. It was never there, and they said that the only reason the people are paying is because they have made the people believe that they have to pay it.
Fearful. They rule by gun.
Yeah.
When you go into an IRS court, it's not even a court. It's a kangaroo court. It's an IRS court. It's not a court under the United States jurisdiction. They don't have to follow the rules.
Well, that's
why people pay taxes, because they'll throw you in jail if you don't.
That's right.
The whole IRS is illegal. And by the way, admin, Utah is one of the states that did not ratify it.
What about Missouri?
I'm not sure. But I know Utah was one that was vehemently opposed to an income tax. But they ran it through. It did not get ratified. It's not legal. And people have gone to court and fought it, but the IRS has more power, and they control the courts, and they'll throw you in jail, even though it's an illegal law.
If y'all would like to look up the Volstead Act, that's what moved all the IRS's authority to Puerto Rico. The only place they have authority is in Puerto Rico. If you go into their court, bring up the Volstead Act and watch how fast they run away from you.
Volstead?
Volstead. That was the elimination of prohibition. I think it's the 18th Amendment. Prohibition, IRS came around because of the tax on alcohol. And the Volstead Act did away with it.
Yep. It's similar to many of the admiralty laws that are in effect now that are really only legal in the District of Columbia.
Hello?
Yeah.
We're here.
Okay.
Oh. Okay,
so
go ahead.
This is what I'm talking about, is we don't need to worry about all this because they're going to change it all. Trump has been talking about changing the very things we're talking about. And so we'll just wait. I'm just waiting to see what he does.
That's why they're going after him like there's no tomorrow. Because for them, there isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're going to lose all their power. They're done. They're toast.
Do they even have any power left? Should be all gone by now, right?
They have power
Well,
because they
they're
own
doing a lot of
media.
squawking.
Remember that the media is their lapdogs, so anything that they want, the media does for them, and that's why you don't believe anything that's in the news.
Well, and not to overplay all the Hitlerian speak that has been going on lately, but the IRS is basically our Gestapo. Haven't you ever wondered how the IRS can impose sanctions on Deutsche Bank and on Switzerland, and how the IRS can tell all the banks and all the investment houses all over the world that they must disclose any American contacts or they'll be punished? How is it the IRS can control the entire world and tell them what to do?
Yep.
It's the IRS, not the IMF. It's the IRS.
The Internal Revenue Service.
Wow.
They're the collection arm of the Federal Reserve. They're the Federal Reserve's money grabber.
Yes, and they are not part of the United States government. They're part of the corporation of the United States, but not the United States. They're unconstitutional.
But if the Federal Reserve, since what was it, 2013, because the charter wasn't renewed, so if they're actually working illegally, isn't the IRS really null and void right now because their charter's gone?
Well, you have to have the Congress has to reject it. If they don't throw it out, it stays in place. We have to have the Congress and the House throw it out. It was a 100-year act, but it continues running unless they take it out.
I see. Thank you. Well, I quit paying taxes. I paid them enough.
There you go.
I just quit about 3 years ago. I was like, I'm done.
Well, let's
Don't answer your door in the middle of the day.
let's a little bit more than based on what we've discussed so far. Who feels that we are still near the end of this journey, that it could still happen this week, for instance?
I do.
I'm always of the opinion that it could happen any time.
Well, Bill, can I interject a little bit?
Sure.
I was on listening to another call. They said 9 days away, or the 16th, they're lifting the ban. The 16th, the travel ban for Iraq
is lifted. Yes.
And then we're looking at the debt ceiling on the 15th. Could those be something that is coordinated? And with the lifting of the ban makes Iraq sovereign. And they say it's sovereign already. But to RV this thing, you think the debt ceiling and the lifting of that ban?
Public, maybe. We're going to go before public.
Okay, I have a question for you on that. So is there anybody or is it just, okay, this is just me, out of questioning. The ban, why was it truly put on Iraq? Was it because they haven't revalued their currency? Is this part of the lifting of the ban? Is because they went ahead and put things so it can go, the revaluation can happen? Is that like a stipulation? Hey, we'll take off the ban, we'll take off the travel ban as long as you make this announcement that this is going to happen, da-da-da-da-da. But if you don't do this, what next?
Do you think it was pressure to begin with.
I do.
Yeah.
What band? Which band are you guys talking about? Are you talking about the travel ban?
The travel ban in how come it's garbled? Just a second.
A little bit garbled there.
Okay. Am I still on?
Yes, you are.
You're on.
Okay. They lifted Iraq off of that list, the travel list, and they'll be lifted on the 16th.
Yes.
And then we have the debt ceiling that's coming into play on the 15th. And when we're saying, when do we think this could happen? It just sounds like we're there. I mean, we're close.
Well, okay, so I'm really confused here because didn't Trump just sign the travel ban today?
Yes.
So why would Iraq and they reduced the restrictions on Iraqi travel? So what are they going to do on the 16th that they wouldn't have done today?
Well, they said it wouldn't be in effect until the 16th. He did it today, but it wouldn't be in effect until the 16th. So
what bans are on them now?
Pardon?
What travel bans on Iraqis now? Because they didn't pass that. That first one got rescinded. So what bans are they lifting on the 16th?
They're taking them off.
There are no bans now.
It's not that they're lifting it, it's that they're not reimposing it. Iraq was part of the 7 countries originally, but the 6 they announced today that goes into effect on the 15th does not include Iraq.
Okay. Right. So they're not lifting anything on Iraq.
Yeah,
Iraq is just not subject to the ban. Am I getting that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, they were part of the original ban, but they are no longer part of the new ban. And so in that regard,
there was no original ban because that got overturned in court. So there was no ban. There is no ban right now until the 16th.
I think.
Well, maybe it's an executive order that he just signed.
Well, that's my point. If he
yeah, you're correct, Blondie.
Order today, what?
You're correct. What you're saying.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and let's just with discussing that, let's talk about that travel ban that's being lifted, and the 15th. Is the
debt ceiling.
Debt ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
What does that have to do with anything? I don't think it has anything to do with anything.
I agree.
Oh.
That's public only. We're not public, y'all. We're private. We are going to go without any announcements. We're just going to go. They're trying to sneak this in when nobody's paying attention. We're paying attention, but look at how quiet it is. Look at how much disinformation is out there.
Bodie, it's not as quiet as you think it is.
Well, yeah, I agree. It's not, but there's a lot of disinformation.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of good information. There's a lot of good information. There's people on this call that bring me very good information, but it's not the kind of information that we can actually say, hey, I got
you can't
this.
Share it.
It says at 12:01 and 30 seconds, this is going to happen. We just can't do that because, we know that there are people that are waiting to be paid, that are waiting to have their funding basically certified, that they can see it in their banks, so then they can go back and start doing what they need to do.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a given, that's fact. But it just hasn't happened yet.
Well, and when the president changes our currency, when they make a domestic dollar, when he makes the announcement, when they decide to go asset-backed, the first one to go will be the United States. When the United States goes asset-backed, all of the other currencies will be left hanging in the wind, just like in 1971. And so they're going to all have to do the same. They're going to follow. So I think the first one to go will be the United States and China. And I find it very interesting that Iraq and Iran are both refusing the American dollar. They're going to make it official for Iran on the 20th. They've already decided in Iraq that no more American dollars. And that's what you would see happening. Yeah, that's what you would see happening. You would see countries refusing the American dollar, and that would, I think, would be the precursor to the change that I'm talking about. I look for an announcement to come out sooner than later, because if everybody's refusing the American dollar, then the only thing left to do is to make a domestic dollar and settle up all the outstanding toxic paper. And that'll all get cleansed, like I've been saying for years, through the International Monetary Fund, through the basket with gold and silver and the reserve currencies.
So basically what we're saying is that it's all going to get handled in the wash. Once that's done, it's done.
Yeah. There'll be no announcements. It'll have no fanfare. It'll just be a change. And the American people, most people, the only thing they're going to notice is the values of assets. The assets are going to change. Why do you think the stock market's going straight up? Would you like me to tell you why I think it's going straight up?
Yes, I would.
Because the dollar is going to fail, and the assets are going to, of the companies that make up the stock market, are going to be revalued. And those asset values are going to have to go up, because when the dollar goes from 97 down to, let's say, 40 cents, then it's the reverse of what we've seen in the 80s, or actually what they were doing in the 80s. I don't want to confuse people, but in the 80s, people were going out and buying up large companies through their stock, and once they got control of the company, they sold off the assets because the assets were worth more than the stock value. So they made money by destroying the company. We're seeing the reverse. We're seeing that again, but in a different way, because the stock market's going up not because the currency's strong. It's going up because the assets of the companies that make up the country of the United States are going to be valued on an asset-backed standard, and therefore those companies will be worth more money. We're going to see the stock market go to 23,000 probably in the next 2 months.
You know,
we've seen it go up 1,000 points.
Yeah, you can look
than ever before.
Mr. B, you can look at the companies that are increasing values slowly, to be sure, but you can see that their actual what they're made of, as you say, their hard assets and stuff, are more valuable than other companies that didn't see the light, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so you can see that in the markets now.
Right.
Yeah, so even though it's a little bit hard to understand, these changes that we're seeing, you realize that we went up 1,000 points since Trump came into office, and that was the fastest rally of 1,000 points ever in the history of the stock market. It's never been done that fast before. And so when these things hit, look for the market to rally hard. Look for the dollar, the international dollar, the petrodollar to get weak, and look for a new domestic dollar to come out.
Okay, so what do you think is going to happen to the price of gold and silver?
Well, gold and silver I've been saying this, I said this before gold got cut in half. I said, I fear that China didn't get the memo because they're collecting all the gold. They had a reason for doing that. But the point is gold and silver are suffering liquidity through the asset-backed standard. So even though gold and silver are an asset and a currency recognized by the United States 2 years ago, first time ever, that do not look for it as an investment, what I'm trying to tell you. Look for it as diversification as an investment, but do not look for it to make you a lot of money, because if it suffers liquidity through the asset standard, then why would it go up? As a matter of fact, I think they brought it down and they're holding it right where it needs to be when they do the revaluation of the currencies. I think they deliberately brought it down.
That with gold, it might, I do believe that there is some validity with gold to that. But silver, I think the price of silver is going to skyrocket.
Well, you are sharp. You got it figured out. I don't need to tell you anymore. Yes, you're right. Gold is not what you need to look at, in my opinion. You need to look at silver. Absolutely.
Well, it's so low right now as it is.
Well, there are reasons for silver, not because silver has so many uses, as do other rare minerals, where gold, not so much.
Gold does not disappear. We use silver and destroy it.
Yes.
Yeah, silver gets destroyed. Gold does not.
Mm-hmm.
Silver is a surface metal that nobody has ever been able to figure out how to replicate yet. So once silver is gone, it's gone. So the price of silver is gonna skyrocket.
That's right, but I haven't figured.
That's good news. I like that.
The only reason silver is going to go up is because the demand is going to increase, but the silver's depletable. We're going to deplete it like oil. We destroy it when we use it.
Yep,
so that's why
it's only for a period of time is it going to rise and stay there, and then all of a sudden.
I don't. In my opinion, I'll put it like that. Once it dawns on everybody, hey, this is really depleted, I think people are going to start hoarding silver. So I don't think once the price of silver shoots up, it's going to stay up there. Because once it's gone, like I said, it's gone. So if you have only an ounce of silver and you've got 15,000 people wanting that ounce of silver, they're going to start bidding for it.
Yeah. Well, remember there are similar minerals that, and that's the reason why China basically took over Zimbabwe and took over its mineral riches, because it's so heavily instilled with those minerals that make up what we need for cell phones and other things that are not as available elsewhere in the world. So they were smart about doing that. Zimbabwe is a very wealthy country.
Well, it's very wealthy. It's very rich with everything. I mean, what is the pill? You know, the capsules that when you get medicine and you can pull the capsules apart. What is that? That's a mineral that comes from Zimbabwe.
The gel, a capsule.
No, not the gel.
So we should start hoarding those too. That sounds like a good plan.
You never know.
You know,
sending the DEA over to your house, Bill.
Yeah, right. just remember, there are with all of this that we're talking about, there are some incredible humanitarian projects that everyone is just chomping at the bits to start with, and many of them involved advanced technologies that are just going to be that will blow your minds when you start seeing them. So it's not just a change in economies and a change in the way we do business. It's likely to be a complete change in the world, in how mankind progresses and deals with the issues of the world. So there are a number of reasons why this needs to happen, and the sooner the better. Because if the monies come out like we hope they will come out, we will be poised to do many good things across the world. And even if the debt of the United States is $200 trillion, that could be paid down. It could be. So,
well, yeah, but who do we owe it to? Why would we have to even pay it off?
now, and that's the point that you made, that write it off, which
yes,
I couldn't
write it
agree with.
off. It's got to be written off because it's just going to the corporate oligarch. It's just going to the con. It's going to the thieves.
Yeah.
Why would we pay them? You know.
It's going to the Queen.
Yeah, it's going to the Queen. It's going to the Vatican. I mean, all these things that once they're exposed, why would anybody want to pay them off? So
Well,
that's the way I look at it.
Exactly. I'd just as soon do other things with it. You know, let's go back to the moon. Let's go to Mars. Let's go to all these cool places.
Well, by the way, do you know why they call a bank a bank?
No.
Because they control the current, like a river.
Yep.
Oh.
Control the currency.
Very
the river is controlled by the bank.
Yep. So it flows only one direction.
Yep. So they're supposed to be the facilitators of commerce, but what they are under this usury, they're the controllers of the money. Do you know in 2008 they retracted over 40% of the currency? They pulled it out of the markets.
Really?
They deliberately collapsed the markets by pulling back the currency.
Yeah.
And they did it in 1928 also when they collapsed the markets. So, you know, there's more than enough evidence to show that the bankers are the ones that cause these economies to go up and down.
Well, they're also the ones that finance wars. They make money coming and going.
Exactly. They finance all the wars because they make money off of all that. Absolutely.
The rich man's trick.
Yeah. Hey, does anybody have anything else they would like to share? It's been a great discussion tonight. Thank you.
Very nice. Very informative. Thank you, guys.
Well, I have one tidbit.
Okay.
Okay. This is just what I heard on a conference call. The GCR, and we could kind of discuss it because I don't know what it would mean, but the GCR is separating from the RV.
That's exactly what I would expect.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that?
Oh.
Go ahead. The GCR separating from the RV.
Okay, can I ask this?
Well,
I wouldn't.
Bad? Well, that's what I brought out. I don't know, and that's just something we can think about if it goes with what is being discussed tonight. How does it fit in?
Well, I can answer that if nobody else wants to take it.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love it.
The global currency reset has nothing to do with revaluations. The revaluations are a completely separate process. The global currency reset is nothing more than the expansion of the fiat money machine that has been going on since 1913. They're just taking it global under one mechanism, one control. And so these countries that have been financially oppressed through the corporation of America, their revaluations, of course, need to be done because, you know, they've been held down under the thumb of America. This is why Vietnam's never revalued, because China and America oppressed that country. They did it deliberately together, and they both benefited. And so they're going to get their freedom. They're going to be able to revalue their currency once the thumb of America, and China's released off of them. And so even though these two processes might go off close together, they're completely separate processes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well,
I can go into more detail, but I
would it mean that? Do you think it would mean? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. That if you think with me saying that with the second basket, that kind of makes sense, because if they're separating,
that's what I'm.
Why not go ahead and have the GCR, Global Currency Reset, so it resets the currencies and then revalue the other currencies? That would make sense to me, especially with the Zimbabwe, with the second basket. Why they would say that there's a second and third basket? I can see that. Kind of like which comes first, the chicken or the egg.
Think about this too. If the American dollar gets revalued and you're an American, doesn't that revalue all the currencies you hold also?
No.
It doesn't?
No.
What if our dollar loses 30% of its value, maybe 60% of its value by tomorrow? Wouldn't the value you hold be worth more money by the very same token?
If you look at it that way, but it doesn't revalue the other currency. It just means that your currency has lost its value. This currency is still the same. So just because your currency has lost its value, if you've got three other currencies, or am I looking at it the wrong way?
How do you determine the value of the currency you're holding? Don't you use the dollar to compare it to that currency you're holding to give it a value? So if the value of the American dollar changes substantially, wouldn't that revalue the currency that you're holding?
Yeah, but the global currency reset, though, is based on the country's assets when it revalues, because they're trying to do away with the petrodollar. So it really doesn't matter with the dollar. Or am I seeing that wrong?
No, you're both.
Am I
you're
wrong?
Right, but no, you're not wrong.
Help me out,
trying
guys.
to tell you that.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. It's just that I don't know that you're seeing that when the dollar revalues in America, that's going to change the value of all the other currencies against the dollar. In other words, if we go weaker, they go stronger.
Correct. I understand that.
Okay. I just wanted everybody to realize that that's one of the things that's going to happen.
Yeah, I understand that what you're saying, but I guess maybe because I'm looking at it as it doesn't. The value of the dollar is changing, but let's say just as an example, like the Vietnamese dong, the Indonesian rupee, and the Zim, they still stand at the price. The value.
No,
of
they're
their
going to change.
No,
it would change. It wouldn't be 30,000 to 1. It would have to change. If we cut, let's say if our dollar was at 97 and it went to, say, 40 or 50 cents, it would have to cut that value in half. It would actually cut it in half. To make it simple,
I understand what you're saying,
look at China.
But what I'm
look at China.
What I'm trying to say is what you're saying is true, but the way I'm looking at it is it doesn't change the value of the other currencies per se to the globe. All it's doing is changing the value of the USD, because just because it changes, unless maybe I'm looking at it wrong. The yen doesn't change the value against the Zim. The yen doesn't change the value against the rupiah. The only thing it's changing is the value of the USD against these other currencies. It didn't change the other currencies' value.
No, it didn't change. Did not change the other currencies, but it did change the valuation, because when you do the math, you take, I believe it's $1.10 times, I can't remember right now, I'd have to look it up. There's a calculation for currency values. And look at China, they're $6.50 to $1 American dollar. If our dollar was worth 50 cents tomorrow, that would change.
But isn't that the purpose of the global currency reset, though? Everything's going to happen at the same time, level playing field. So what you're
Right.
saying is correct, but I'm not
Yep.
sure who I'm talking to, the young lady, but I'm agreeing with her because everything is going to happen at the same time to avoid that fluctuation.
Yes.
Mr. B?
But we're gonna have two different processes. You're gonna have Iraq, Iran, Zimbabwe, Vietnam, and many other countries do a major revaluation because their currency's been oppressed. But before that occurs, we'll probably have a global currency reset to get everybody on the same level, right? I mean, I can't say for sure.
I think we have somebody else trying to chime in here. Who was that? Was that Bert?
This is Silverado.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey, Mr. B.
Hey, Silverado. How you
How
doing?
you doing? Pretty good. I think there's a general miscommunication or misperception going on, and it all goes back to what you said a few minutes ago about how when the gold standard and things changed, the other currencies pegged to the U.S. dollar, which is what made the U.S. dollar the reserve currency. When the GCR happens, the whole idea of parity is everything's going to depeg from the dollar. And so what will happen is there will be, whether it's the new IMF, what's it called, SDR, or whether it's gold, there will be, okay, let's say we go back to the gold standard. Then all the currency will be relative to gold. They'll be pegged to gold, not to the U.S. dollar. And so the fluctuation of the U.S. dollar will have nothing to do with the other currencies, because instead of being the yen to the dollar, the IQD to the dollar, the dong to the dollar, it'll be a three-step process. If we're on the gold standard, then it has to do with the relativity to gold, not to the U.S. dollar. That's why it's going to be depegged, and that's why we're going to have the basket as a reserve currency, not an individual currency as the only reserve currency. And that's where the parity comes in, because nothing will be based on a single currency. It'll either be to gold or to the SDRs.
And that's why Trump keeps saying he's going to do that with China. That's the statement he's made. No longer he's going to allow China.
So, and that's what's so funny, because everybody keeps saying that China is this money manipulator. The U.S. is the biggest money manipulator that ever existed.
Yeah. Thanks, Silverado. You explained that a little better. Maybe I wasn't doing a good job, but yeah, thank you.
Well, and that's the whole idea when you keep talking about parity, is it will be and I make myself clear, it won't be tied to the dollar. So the dollar will not be influencing everybody else's currency anymore.
yeah, it's the equalizer.
Yes.
And so, there's been talk for a long time about gold going back to 450, and that will be the standard. And typically, historically, I think a lot of stuff is going back historical. And so there's always been a 16-to-1 ratio of gold to silver. And right now, that's way out of whack. Silver is very undervalued compared to what gold is. And that's why gold will come down, silver will go up. And again, as Mr. B said, you shouldn't look at gold or silver as an investment. You should look at it as a hedge, because that's what will maintain a value, not necessarily increase in value, because everything will be pegged to it. So it's more of a hedge than an investment.
Well put. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. B, could we go back to the beginning of when this all came up about the dollar losing value? I just want to clarify something, and if I understand this correctly. When you said, let's say the dollar loses 40% in value, well, the other currencies don't lose 40% in value. The dollar does.
Hello?
Which means,
hello? Hey,
can you hear
guys.
me, Mr. B?
Hello? Wait.
Yeah, I
I
can
need
hear
to
you.
interrupt. But could somebody, my lights are flickering, the hail is coming. If someone would be so kind as to maybe give me a quick email from the rest of the conversation. I think I'm going to lose my lights here in just a minute. The storm is hitting really bad now.
Oh, you take care of yourself.
Be safe.
This is Iman. So,
Okay.
Oh, okay, Iman.
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll keep you in our prayers.
All right, thank you, ladies. Bye.
Well, and Blondie, that's what I was saying about your question about if the dollar goes down, it doesn't mean everything else is going to go down. You're right, because the others will be depegged from the dollar, and they'll be pegged to either the SDR or gold or whatever the new reserve basis point is, whatever the datum is that everything will be pegged to. So you're right, just because the dollar goes down 40%, that's not going to drag everything else down as it would if the dollar were the only reserve currency.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
And that's
actually, it's
actually
going to strengthen. It's going to strengthen the money you hold is going to get stronger, not weaker, when the dollar goes
Well, and
down.
that's another reason, the inverse of what Mr. B was saying about the stock market. One of the reasons the stock market is going up so much in U.S. dollars is because the U.S. dollar is going down. And so it takes more U.S. dollars to buy the same thing.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Got a
guys.
little convoluted there, so just wanted to clarify that.
All right, we've been on here almost 2 hours now, so it's time to
Okay.
call it 1 hour and 49 minutes. So it's
Whoa.
time to call it. So one thing that before we call it an end is, we're all members of WSOMN, and it's just like 20 of us here that are talking, and there's over 1,000 members now in WSOMN. So the question that we have, and if you go over there and look at the site right now, they are just saying, what the heck's going on? Why won't anybody talk to us except Scotchy?
They're lonely over there. They need some help.
So the question here is, we know what we know. They don't know squat, except what we tell them. So what do we say? That is what we have to figure out. I don't think anything that we talked about in here tonight is confidential. Does anybody think it is?
No.
I think so.
No,
Okay.
because I'm sure several in there, they might know some of that anyway. So, no, I don't think so.
Okay. Is there anybody that would not want this talked about and shared? Okay, we have not mentioned anything about any particular group or anything like that I can think of. So I think it's safe to say that that we can share this information with the room, however you want to share it.
Hey, Bill, you know what you could do? I don't know if it's been posted, but Sean's call from last night, we have his permission to share. So that might, if you don't have the replay number, I'll get it to you, and you can post it.
I think we've got it, and we've got, this one is recorded too, so it's something they could listen to as well. If you all are okay with doing it, is anybody that objects?
No, but you might want to think about that, Bill, and the DEA thing.
That's a good point.
Which one?
Let me say this. For anybody in the DEA that's listening, Blondie made me do it.
For goodness sake, don't give out my phone number.
No, there's no phone numbers. It's just a call-in. No phone numbers. They don't see that.
Good.
I'll
pull
back.
Bill, go ahead.
Bill, what you might consider, instead of posting this call, I can see everybody saying, well, how come I'm not on the call, and how do I get on the call?
Exactly.
It's just do some kind of a synopsis and say something generally like, I was on a call the other night, and this is what, this is what I heard, or this is some of the things that we talked about.
I understand. I understand that, but
we have 1,000 people now that are upset that they're not on the call.
okay, but you have to realize that the people that are on the call, I invited personally on the call, and I do that because I don't like large calls because you can't get anything done. It's it's just too confusing.
Bill, I also think that what the text of the conversation is not something easy to summarize. I think it was too detailed
to summarize. It's very detailed. Mr. B's information and everybody's information is very good. So I don't know if I can edit this thing down, but I'll look at doing it.
Or maybe you thought you edited it just because you loved us more than everyone else.
We still have people in our room that we're not sure who they are. So if we start opening it up and having everybody in there, then you're going to have information that's going to travel over to Dinar Daily.
Yes.
So there's, I think we need to be careful.
By the way, I just want to clarify that when I was saying the currencies would go down, for those that don't know, when a currency goes down, it actually goes up in value when we're talking about, let's say Iraqi dinar or the Iranian rial or the Vietnamese dong, when it, because it's so negative. So
when it goes down in relativity to the basis, whatever the basis is, if it's gold.
Yeah.
So if gold goes to $450 US to the ounce, and let's say the Chinese yuan is $200 to the ounce, that means that the yuan is a little more than twice as strong as the dollar, because it only takes 200 of them to buy an ounce of gold. It takes 450 of ours. So ours is weaker. So the smaller number compared to the basis is the stronger currency.
Exactly. Hey, I just got a text that I was asked to share with you, and that is that there are 2 groups that are waiting on TRN conversions. Could be tonight through Wednesday.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
That makes sense of what I've heard over the weekend.
Wow.
Okay, I think we'll just leave it at that. If you want to share information in the chat room, okay, or just write something up in the forum, that's okay too. But I think we'll just not post a link. We'll go ahead and let Sean talk for us.
And we could just say this is what we heard.
That'll keep them busy for 3 hours, Bill.
In chat. Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Oh,
thank you.
Well, thank you, Bill, for opening it up to us.
Thanks, Bill.
We appreciate.
Thank you, Bill.
Great information.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Bill.
Thanks.
Night, roomies.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, Blondie.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.